So, you've started taking an interest in your own personal finance and either decided to start investing for your retirement by means of retirement annuity, or you've been invested for a while now in an RA, but you are not really happy to see how it performed over the past couple of years. You are now exploring all the different options that are available on the market whilst trying to navigate the absolute maze and spiderweb that is retirement annuities in South Africa. Now, if this is you, then this video will definitely be worth watching. I'm going to strip down all the confusion and intricacies that are involved with RAs, break them down into the simple parts that you need to understand and consider when taking out an RA, and then compare the 4 best and cheapest RA options that are currently available on the market in South Africa so that you can make an informed decision. Now guys, the decision you make in which retirement product you invest your lifetime savings can literally make or lose you millions of rands. So please take this seriously and watch this video all the way to the end, as this will arguably be the most important financial decision you make in your whole life. Now you might be asking, Peter, why should I even care? I mean, isn't saving money and putting it into an investment that your family, friend, financial advisor advised to do enough? And the short answer is no. And here's why. The finance industry likes to make things complicated so that ordinary people, such as you and me, feel like they are forced to pay others exorbitant fees to do fairly simple tasks. And even if you're trying to do the right thing and provide for your future, many of the RA providers are taking huge bites out of your returns and therefore drastically reducing the size of your golden nest egg that you have been slaving away for most of your life. On top of all of this, RA providers tend to make it pretty difficult to see exactly what you are paying, as they have different ways that they structure their pricing, which makes it very difficult to compare apples with apples. Don't believe me? Okay, let's look at a simple example. Assuming that you invest the same amounts over your lifetime in 2 different RAs, and these providers invest in the same funds, or if the funds that they invest in offer the same returns, which is most of the time the case, as all RAs are limited to Regulation 28, which I will explain a bit later, then the only thing that will really influence how much money you end up having at retirement will be the fees that you pay. Now, you will find that the industry average on fees for RAs is around about 3%. This does not sound that much, but say you invest 2,000 Rand per month for 40 years with an average return on your investments of 13% and an average inflation rate of 6%, you will end up having around about 2.36 million Rand in today's money. Not bad, huh? Okay. Now, let's say you invest in an RA with an annual fee of 1%, which, by the way, is absolutely possible and what this whole video is all about. And we keep the contributions, time frame, average annual return and inflation rate exactly the same. Then you will end up retiring with just less than 4 million Rand. That is a whopping 68.49% more in retirement just by paying 2% less in fees. Convinced yet? Good. Now let's get into this video. Okay, so before I jump into the reviews for each RA provider individually, there are a couple of things that you first need to understand about how they are compiled and which metrics are used to compare each one with another. I'm not going to go into depth on what an RA is, so if you don't yet know much about them, then make sure to check out this video first. Alright, let's quickly go over the most important things that all 4 these RAs have in common. Number 1, all retirement annuity investments in South Africa are subject to Regulation 28 of the Pension Funds Act, which basically means that you can't invest more than 75% in equities, 25% in property, 10% in commodities, 15% in hedge funds, or 30% in international investments within a retirement annuity. These are the rules that all RAs need to abide to, no way around that, and hence why most of them will perform pretty much the same. Number 2, all contributions to any RA are tax deductible up to a limit of 27.5% of your gross annual income or 350,000 Rand per year. Number 3, all growth within an RA is tax-free, meaning that you don't pay any interest, net rental, dividend or capital gains tax. Number 4, you can only withdraw money after the age of 55, except under very special circumstances. Number 5, I've looked at all the possible underlying funds that can be invested in an RA wrapper for each one of these platforms, which I will briefly mention, but for the sake of comparison, I only chose one champion for each provider in order to compare the costs, past performance and other benefits you might get for using the platform. These funds are all in high equity allocations, meaning the most aggressive funds that has the best chance of offering the highest returns in the long run, subject to the regulation mentioned earlier, of course. Number 6, when I compare costs, I will specifically speak about the EAC number. This stands for effective annual cost and is basically the most accurate representation of all the fees that you will pay on your product. It is quite challenging to find this number, surprise, surprise, but in essence, it includes the TER, which is the total expense ratio that you will see on most fund facts, the TC or transaction costs, the administration and the platform fee. These ones are split into many smaller parts as well, making it even more confusing, but I'm not going to bore you with that. So for the sake of this video, you can trust that the EAC is what you will pay for each provider. I will assume that you do not use a financial advisor, and if you do, you will need to add their fee to this number as well. Number 7, for all of these providers, there are no fees involved when transferring to or from the provider. And number 8, at the very end of each comparison, I will review which one I would consider to be the best as well as my reasoning behind it. But as always, I'm not a financial advisor, so do not take any of this as financial advice, but rather as financial education so that you can make your own informed decision. Okay, with that all of the way, let's get into it. First up is 10x Investments. 10x was founded in 2007 and lives strongly by the motto of keeping things simple by being transparent about their costs and by focusing on low fees. They manage over 15 billion Rand in assets and were one of the first providers that challenged the active management strategy by bringing passive management into the industry. They do not believe in single stock picking, but rather in investing in an index fund that will match the return of the market. They have a very simple strategy for retirement, which is to invest 15% of your gross salary for 40 years in a high growth index fund, paying fees of less than 1%. Now, although 10x likes to sound the horn of being the cheapest RA provider in South Africa, they are actually not. They charge a management fee based on a sliding scale, with the first 1 million Rand invested costing 1.04%, the next 4 million costing 0.81%, the next 5 million 0.58%, and anything above 10 million Rand 0.4%. The fees shown on their website are excluding VAT, so the numbers that I'm giving includes 50% VAT, which I also don't like because the advertising is kind of misleading and gives the impression that their fees are lower than what they really are. And it doesn't really stop here either. When you use the EAC calculator and fill in your investment objectives, you will find that the EAC is much higher than what they would like to advertise. Now, I'm not sure where all the extra costs are coming from, as this is nowhere to be found on their website. So for a company that boasts about being transparent and cheap, they are not really living up to their promise, which again, I don't really like. Now 10x likes to keep things simple and therefore only has 4 different funds available to choose from for their RAs. The champion for long-term investors from 10x will be the 10x High Equity Fund that was established in 2019 and is valued around about 12.2 million rand. They come quite close to the maximum allocation to equities and offshore exposure, but has a very low allocation to property, which is probably okay as the property market is not doing very well at the moment. The fund on average delivered a return of 10.89% since its inception of 2 years ago and has a TIC of 0.66% and an effective annual cost of 1.17%. Again, not what they promised. The minimum contributions for RA at 10x is a lump sum of 1,000 Rand at a time or a minimum monthly contribution of 500 Rand. And if you want to transfer from another provider, the fund needs to be valued at least 25,000 Rand. 10x will automatically adjust your portfolio according to your investment time horizon to try and maximize growth and minimize risk, which means that you will have high exposure to equity when you are younger and low exposure as you approach retirement. Now, I have to say that I really like that 10x is advocating the importance of realizing what effect high fees can have on your investments, and they do a really good job at making this easy to visualize and understand. Their website is well laid out and easy to navigate with many useful tools such as their online calculators, blog posts and tax tips, and they even have a free ebook with many helpful tips on saving and investing. They also like to take a swing at active fund managers by continuously pointing out that their passive portfolios outperformed the average return of large fund managers in the past. Next up is Sygnia. Sygnia was founded in 2006 and has established themselves as one of the cheapest and most competitive passive index investment platforms on the market. Their passive strategy is cost effective to implement because they do not employ analysts and portfolio managers to decide when to buy or sell shares, but their products still deliver consistent performance that compares favorably against their active managed competitors. Sygnia has many different types of funds available, ranging from unit trusts, ETFs and ETNs, and all of them can be found on the Sygnia Alchemy platform. You can also invest in externally managed funds via their platform, opening a world of possibilities, quite literally. If you invest in the Sygnia Unit Trust or Unitized Life Funds, then you don't have to pay any admin fees. But if you wish to invest in the Sygnia ETFs, ETNs or any of their external managed unit trust, then you will need to pay an admin fee which will be 0.23% on Sygnia ETFs and 0.46% on external unit trusts, ETFs and ETNs on the first 2 million Rand invested. And if your investment grow above 2 million Rand, then you will need to pay an admin fee of 0.12% on Sygnia ETFs and 0.23% on external unit trusts, ETFs and ETNs. All of these fees are inclusive of VAT. On top of this admin fee, you will also need to pay the fund management charge, which you will find on the fund fact sheet of the fund that you wish to invest in. For RS specifically, Sygnia has 10 different types of unit trusts available, and the one that you will be invested in will again depend on your risk profile and time horizon. For long-term investors, the champion from Sygnia will be the Sygnia Skeleton Balanced 70 Fund. This fund was founded in 2013, is passively managed and valued at 2.5 billion Rand. It does not reach its maximum allocation to shares, property or offshore exposure and seems to focus more on cash and bonds, so this could potentially drag the growth of the fund in the long term. The fund on average delivered a 9.59% return for the past 3 years and has an effective annual cost of 0.46%, VAT included, regardless of the amount invested. And this is ridiculously cheap in comparison with the industry average. The minimum contributions for RA at Sygnia include an initial lump sum of 20,000 Rand, additional lump sums of 5,000 Rand, and a debit order of 500 Rand per month. You may stop contributing at any time with no penalty, and there's no fixed monthly premium and no set term. Now, Sygnia does a good job in taking the stress out of first-time investing. You can fill out an online questionnaire on the website, after which they will suggest a personalized plan for you where you will be matched with one of their 10 model portfolios. The whole sign-up process can be done online and you will be able to sign the documents electronically. Sygnia also make use of a robo-advisor that can offer advice based on the information disclosed by you, but they do not offer any comprehensive financial planning advice. They do not have an app available, so you will need to use the internet portal to manage your investments. Their website layout is very basic and sometimes somewhat difficult to navigate, which is a byproduct of trying to keep costs as low as possible by not spending huge exorbitant amounts on marketing and design, I guess. They have been in the industry for a relatively long time, and most of the reviews that I could find online regarding their customer service and platform has been rather positive. Next up is Easy Equities. Most of you are probably already familiar with the platform, but just to give you a brief overview, Easy Equities is an online brokerage platform that was established in 2014. You can do just about anything when it comes to investing through Easy Equities, including investing in RAs, tax-free savings accounts, international markets, and just normal discretionary accounts. Easy Equities do not charge a platform or annual fee, but do charge an administration fee on their RA products of 0.345%, as well as investment costs that can range from anywhere between 0.69 and 1.725%, depending on which RA fund you choose. So you can expect an EAC of between 1.035 and 2.07% inclusive of VAT. Now, Easy Equities offer quite a lot of RA investment options to choose from, which can be quite overwhelming for the average beginner investor. You can invest in either bundles or unit trust, with each one having its own degree of risk, fees, and potential returns. Now, to be honest, I really struggled to find one specific RA product that provides the best return for the lowest fee, but if I have to choose one, it will probably be the Emperor Core Balanced RA Fund. This fund joined Easy Equities in 2018 as an annualized average return of 9.76% over the past 3 years and has an EAC of 1.25% inclusive of VAT. It maxes out the equity and offshore exposure, which again is great for long-term investors. Probably the best thing about Easy Equity over all of the other platforms is that there's no minimum investment amount required. You can start with basically as little as 10 Rand, which basically makes it accessible to everyone who wants to start investing. Easy Equities have an online risk profile calculator tool that you can use to help pick the RA best suited for your needs. They have an app available that is easy to navigate and easy to understand. They offer a lot of free resources to educate yourself on personal finance, and their customer service is also generally very good and will respond to queries fairly quickly. And finally, we have OUTvest. Now, OUTvest is an investing platform that is part of OUTsurance, which was founded in 2017. Now, these guys revolutionized the investing industry by introducing a fixed fee to the investments, thereby taking out all the confusion and frustration involved with trying to figure out what your investments will actually cost you. Most investment providers will charge you up to 4 different fees, and not all of them will appear together on your statements, as you've probably seen so far. Now, OUTvest combine all of the different fees for administration, advice, and fund management into one single fee that is deducted from your investment and shown on your investment every single month, thereby adding complete transparency to your investments. Their fee structure is based on a sliding scale, with investments below 300,000 Rand charged at 1.5% per year, investments valued between 300,000 Rand and 2.25 million Rand costing a flat fee of 4,500 per year, subject to inflation, and investments valued more than 2.25 million rand being charged at a rate of 0.2% per year, with all of these fees being inclusive of VAT. Now, OUTvest is all about keeping things simple. So instead of having hundreds of different funds available to choose from, they narrowed it down to 5 simple funds that you can invest in based on your risk profile and time horizon, which, by the way, if you don't yet know what your risk profile is, you can calculate using this tool. All these funds are passively managed and constructed on a rule-based approach in order to try and keep costs low whilst offering good diversification. So, the champion fund from OUTvest will be the Core Share Outaggressive Index Fund that aims to perform in line with inflation plus 5% every year. This fund was founded in 2018 and is valued at 65 million rand and comes very close to the maximum allocation to shares, property and offshore exposure, which again is what will give you the best chance of growth in the long run. The fund gave on average a 9.17% return over the past 3 years. Now, apart from all of this, they have a really nice interactive website as well as an OUTvest app. So most of the investment admin is done online and managed in the digital space, which makes it easier to add and withdraw money, view your statements, track your goals, and change your personal details. You can track the performance on your investments on a daily basis and receive advice on how to stay on track of your investment objectives. When applying, everything can be done online, so you don't have to fill in and submit any paperwork. They mostly use a digital robo-advisor to help you with your investment objectives, but if you do want to speak with a human advisor, they are also available via an online chat. And lastly, they have a lot of money advice blogs as well as helpful online calculators that you can use to help improve your personal finance and investment knowledge. Okay, so Peter, which one of these is the ultimate champion? Now, as you have seen, most of them are invested in similar allocations and they all performed fairly similarly over the past 3-year period. So for me, the factor that will ultimately decide which one comes out on top would be the fees. Easy Equities is the most expensive of the 4 with an EAC of 1.25%, and for this reason I will rank them 4th for RA investments. Their platform is really easy to use though, and they really do make it really easy to invest in other investments such as a tax-free savings account or normal discretionary investments as well. And for these investments, they will probably rank on top. But for RAs specifically, they are a tad a bit of expensive. 10x investments boast a lot about low fees, but in this comparison, they are actually the second most expensive with an EAC of 1.17% on your first 1 million rand. Also, their advertising is a bit misleading, which kind of hurts the trust factor. So for this reason, I will rank them 3rd. Now, the last 2 is a bit tricky. Sygnia is the cheapest by far for any beginner investor with an annual EAC of 0.46%. OUTvest is a bit more expensive in the beginning, but does become dirt cheap when your investments grow large. So for beginner investors, I will rank OUTvest as 2nd and Sygnia as 1st. Oh wait, should I have given a drum roll? Too late now. But I know you smart people will notice a hack with these. Seeing that none of these providers charge any penalties to move to or from them, my non-financial advice personal strategy would be to start my R investments in the Sygnia Skeleton Balanced 70 Fund, and once I reach just shy of 1 million rand, I will move my investments over to the Outaggressive Index Fund from OUTvest until retirement. The reason for this is that at around 919,000 rand, the fee from OUTvest will start to beat the fee from Sygnia, hence the pivot. Also, I want to give OUTvest more time to see if this fixed fee strategy will work out, since they are still relatively new in the industry. So now that you've seen what is currently available on the market, you will experience one of two feelings. You will either be very glad that you stumbled across this long but rather comprehensive video before you start investing in an RA, or you will be full of rage to realize that you've been properly shafted for many years, if not decades, by your current provider. So, what are your options? Should you move? Now, before jumping on the phone and yelling at your RA provider, there are a couple of things that you first need to find out. First, request an EAC statement from your current RA provider. If your total EAC is anywhere above 1.5%, then strongly consider switching to one of the providers mentioned earlier with less excessive fees. If you want to see what effect this subtle change in fees might have on your investments, then click on the link down in the description to this online tool and enter your values. You might be shocked to see the difference. But before you decide to move, first find out what charges will apply for quitting your current RA. Old school RAs can have hefty penalties for terminating contracts, so these penalties will need to be weighed up against the money you will save on fees in order to make an informed decision. In general, the longer time you have until retirement, the more likely it is that you should be switching to a cheaper provider. Because just like investment returns, fees also compound over time, but unlike returns, compounding fees will count against you. And you definitely do not want to be on the wrong side of compounding. So if you know your current EAC, your potential new EAC, the penalty it will cost to switch providers, and the time horizon of your investments, then you can use this handy tool to see if it will make sense in the end to switch or not based on 3 different types of market returns. Now, a transfer from one RA provider to another is typically done through what is called a Section 14 transfer. Depending on whether you were invested in a new offered by asset manager or old offered by insurance companies, Generation RA, this transfer can take anything from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Best would be to ask your new provider to take charge of this, as they want your business and will try and speed up this whole process as much as possible. Lastly, make sure you understand what you will be losing when switching. Some old school RAs have things like life, disability and other insurance products linked to your RA, so if you do decide to move, make sure that you are taking this into consideration as well. This is a very important decision to make, so rather consult with a qualified financial advisor that you can trust in order to help you compare both options thoroughly. So when it comes to investments, there are many things that are completely out of your control. But the few things that we do have control over, such as which funds we choose to invest in and how much we are willing to pay, can literally make or break millions of rands in the long run. And when considering that RAs are all limited under Regulation 28, meaning their returns will be more or less the same over the long run, the only real thing that you need to worry about is the fees. You really can't go wrong with any of these providers mentioned in this video, so spend some time to audit your own RA, compare that to what is currently available on the market, get professional help and make an informed decision. Your future self will definitely thank you for it. Wow, that was a long one. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, then thank you so much. I probably spent around about a whole month researching this, so if you found it to be helpful, then I would really appreciate it if you can leave just a simple like and make sure to share it with your friends and your family. And if you want to learn more about other investment products such as a tax-free savings account, then make sure to check out these 2 videos as well. And if you are new to my channel and you are interested in things like personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship and life hacks in general, then make sure to subscribe, as I'll be posting new videos every single week. And as always guys, have a lucky day and I'll see you in another video next week. Cheers.